There was a time when you promised yourself more. When you said, "One day I'll be better." When you swore you'd stop procrastinating, stop quitting, stop settling for almost. But somewhere along the way you got distracted. You traded your standards for comfort. You started believing that later was a valid plan. This audiobook is your wake-up call. Growth isn't about becoming someone else. It's about keeping the promises you made to yourself. It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. The discipline to act like the person you said you'd be, even when motivation disappears. You don't need another goal. You need accountability. You don't need another plan. You need execution. Because becoming who you said you'd be is not an event. It's a daily decision. A decision to rise when it's easier to rest. To commit when it's easier to quit. This audiobook isn't about hype. It's about truth. It's about the quiet, disciplined grind that turns your words into proof. So as you listen, remember this. You already know who you're meant to be. This is how to finally become them. Chapter 1. Remember who you promised to be. Before life got loud, before distractions took over, before you learned to pretend everything was fine, there was a version of you who had clarity. A version who dreamed without limitation. Who believed that change was possible. Who saw potential, not pressure. That version of you, the one who looked at the world and said, "I'm going to become someone great someday," is still in there. But somewhere along the way life happened. The world got in your ear. Doubt crept in. Responsibilities piled up. And the version of you that once led with fire started settling for survival. You stopped chasing your potential not because you didn't care, but because you got tired of the noise telling you it was too late, too hard, too unrealistic. The first step in growth isn't learning something new. It's remembering something old. It's recalling who you swore you'd become before the world made you forget. Before you started shrinking yourself to fit in. Before you began trading vision for validation. Because self-development isn't about creating a new identity. It's about returning to the one you promised yourself long ago. That's the essence of real growth, not reinvention, but reconnection. Somewhere deep down, you still know who that person is. They show up in flashes. When you're alone, when the noise fades, when you catch yourself wondering, "What happened to me?" That whisper in your mind saying, "I'm meant for more." That's not ego, that's memory. It's your soul reminding you that you've drifted too far from who you said you'd be. You don't need to find yourself. You just need to remember yourself. Sit with this question for a moment. Who did I promise myself I'd become? Not who your parents wanted. Not who society expected. Not who fear convinced you to settle as. But you. The version who dreamed without compromise. The one who didn't yet know what impossible meant. That's where growth begins. Not in chasing something new, but in keeping a promise that's long overdue. Reconnecting with that version reignites purpose. Because purpose doesn't come from outside, it's born from within. It's not found in achievement, it's found in alignment. When what you do finally matches who you know you're meant to be, that's when peace and progress start working together. And that's when growth stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like home. The truth is, most people don't fail because they can't improve. They fail because they forget what they were improving for. You started chasing success instead of alignment, validation instead of vision. And slowly your focus shifted from becoming to performing. But performance without purpose always leads to emptiness. The real mission is simple. To close the gap between who you are and who you said you'd be. Every choice, every habit, every decision should move you closer to that alignment. Write down the promise. Yes, physically write it. Not on your phone. Not in a note app. On paper. Write down who you said you'd become, the kind of person, the kind of energy, the kind of discipline you swore you'd have. That's your new contract with yourself. Sign it, date it, and treat it like the sacred commitment it is. Because it's not a wish, it's a declaration. You're not waiting for permission to start again. You're reclaiming ownership of the promise you already made. Every time you feel lost, look at that paper. Every time you hesitate, read those words. Every time you want to quit, remind yourself, "I made a promise, and I intend to keep it." Discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about honoring yourself. It's the daily act of proving that your words still mean something. That's why the most powerful form of motivation doesn't come from outside. It comes from the guilt of breaking your own promise and the pride of keeping it. So ask yourself, have I been living up to the person I said I'd be? Or have I been avoiding the work it takes to become them? You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start remembering the questions. The ones you used to ask when your soul was still on fire. Because inside that fire was your direction. Inside that clarity was your character. Inside that promise was your potential. You don't need a miracle, you need a memory. Every new version of you begins with remembrance. You can't rebuild what you've forgotten exists. So return to your roots, not your past but your purpose. The moment you remember who you promised to be, the excuses start losing their power. The distractions lose their grip. The fatigue begins to fade. Because clarity gives energy, and confusion steals it. And when you remember your why, discipline stops feeling like work. It becomes worship. You owe it to yourself to finish what you started. To become who you said you'd be. Not because the world expects it, but because you do. Because that promise you made years ago in silence with conviction was not a fantasy. It was a glimpse of your potential trying to speak to you. That voice never disappeared. It just got buried under noise. Now it's time to uncover it. Remember who you promised to be. Because growth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally living up to the person you were always meant to become. Write the promise. Revisit it daily. Let it become your compass. Because when you reconnect with that version of yourself, you stop wandering and start walking in purpose again. Chapter 2. Discipline is love in action. Discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect in motion. It's not a form of control, it's a form of care. Every time you follow through, you prove you're worth the effort. Every time you choose structure over impulse, you tell yourself, I matter enough to keep my word. That's what real self-love looks like. Not indulgence, not comfort, but consistency. Because true self-love is keeping promises, not avoiding pain. Somewhere along the way, the world convinced us that self-love meant softness. That it meant saying yes to everything that feels good and no to anything that feels hard. But that's not love, that's escape. Love doesn't protect you from growth. It prepares you for it. Love doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook. It means holding yourself accountable because you deserve the best version of you. Discipline is not the opposite of love. It's the purest expression of it. It's how love behaves when the feelings fade. Anyone can feel motivated when it's easy. Anyone can show up when it's exciting. But discipline is how you show up when no one's watching, when it's boring, when it's uncomfortable. That's the real test of love. Not how you treat yourself when it's easy, but how you treat yourself when it's hard. When you wake up early to train even though you'd rather sleep, that's love. When you turn off distractions to focus on your purpose, that's love. When you choose what you need over what you want, that's love. Because love doesn't say, do what feels good. Love says, do what makes you proud. Every act of discipline is a declaration. It says, I refuse to abandon myself. It's the daily practice of proving that your goals deserve your loyalty. Because loyalty isn't just about relationships with others, it's about the one you have with yourself. How often have you kept promises to everyone but you? How often have you shown up for others while constantly breaking commitments to yourself? That's why discipline matters. Because it's the bridge between intention and integrity. Without it, you live in constant contradiction, saying you want better but settling for less. Discipline is what makes love sustainable. Because without it, self-love becomes talk, not transformation. You can affirm all you want, visualize all you want, plan all you want, but without follow-through, it's empty. Discipline is where love turns into evidence. You can't say you love yourself and keep feeding habits that destroy your peace. You can't claim growth while constantly choosing comfort. You can't become who you promised to be while living like you've already arrived. Love yourself enough to demand more from yourself. That's what real self-development feels like, compassionate accountability. Discipline is not about being harsh. It's about being honest. It's saying, I know what I'm capable of, and I refuse to let my laziness or fear rob me of that potential. It's setting standards and actually standing by them, not because someone told you to, but because you know your worth deserves it. And yes, discipline can feel like pain. can feel uncomfortable, repetitive, heavy. But that pain is sacred. It's the pain of evolution. It's the discomfort that comes from shedding old patterns and strengthening new ones. Pain without purpose is suffering. But pain with purpose is transformation. When you avoid the work, you avoid the reward. When you chase comfort, you create chaos. But when you choose discipline, you build peace. Because discipline removes guilt. It replaces shame with structure, confusion with clarity, and regret with rhythm. There's no greater peace than the one that comes from knowing, I did what I said I'd do. That's not pride. That's self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen that trust. Every time you keep going when it would be easier to quit, you build credibility with your own soul. And when that trust grows, you stop needing external validation, because you already have proof within you. Discipline says, I believe in my future more than I believe in my feelings. It's the highest form of self-respect, to act on behalf of your higher self, even when your lower self protests. That's the kind of love that changes you. Not romantic love. Not fleeting emotion. But devoted love. The kind that doesn't waver when life gets inconvenient. So the next time your mind tells you, you deserve a break, ask yourself, is it rest or is it avoidance? The next time you're tempted to give up, remind yourself, discipline is love in action. Love that shows up tired. Love that sacrifices comfort for clarity. Love that keeps building the future one choice at a time. Because no one can love you into your potential. That's your job. And no one can discipline you into greatness. That's your responsibility. Discipline is the most powerful, I love you, you'll ever give yourself. Because it's proof. Proof that you're willing to do what's required. Proof that you care enough to keep showing up. Proof that you respect yourself too much to settle for average effort. This is the foundation of self-development, the daily act of honoring your potential through consistent discipline. Discipline is love in action. It's not punishment. It's protection. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a message, I'm worth the work. And every time you choose structure over comfort, you're saying, I believe in the person I'm becoming. Because true self-love isn't found in comfort, it's forged in commitment. It's built in the moments you could quit, but don't. Chapter 3. Motivation is overrated, systems win. Motivation feels good, but it's unreliable. It's the spark that starts the fire, not the fuel that keeps it burning. Because emotion fades, structure remains. The truth is simple, you don't rise to your level of inspiration, you fall to your level of system. When you build your life on motivation, you live on emotional credit. But when you build your life on structure, you live on discipline dividends. Motivation is how you start. Systems are how you finish. Most people wait to feel ready before they take action. But the strongest people act first, and let the feeling catch up later. They know that waiting for motivation is like waiting for perfect weather. You can't control when it comes, and you'll waste your life waiting for it. That's why they don't rely on energy, they rely on environment. They don't depend on willpower, they depend on workflow. Because when you design a system that moves you automatically, you no longer need to bargain with your emotions. Your feelings stop being the driver and start being passengers. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline says, it's time. And systems make sure it happens, no matter what the answer is. That's the secret to consistency. You don't fight your emotions, you outsmart them. Systems are simply structured decisions made in advance, so you don't waste energy deciding later. They turn effort into autopilot. They turn chaos into clarity. They turn goals into routines that execute themselves. You don't need to be constantly inspired when your environment is constantly aligned. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait for motivation to do it, you just do it. Why? Because it's systemized. It's part of who you are. Imagine if you built your habits the same way. So deeply ingrained that skipping them would feel unnatural. That's the power of systems. They make progress the default state, not the rare event. Motivation is an emotion. Systems are design. And design always outlasts emotion. The most productive people aren't more motivated than you, they're more prepared. They've removed friction from the things that move them forward. They've created routines that require less thinking and more doing. They don't rely on hype, they rely on habit. Because hype is temporary but habit is transformative. Motivation depends on mood. Systems depend on method. And method beats mood every single time. When you have a system, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start saying, "This is just what I do." That's how you build momentum. Not through occasional intensity, but through consistent structure. Motivation might get you to the gym once. A system will get you there for life. Motivation might get you to study for an hour. A system will turn studying into identity. Because discipline isn't about doing extraordinary things, it's about doing ordinary things without fail. Your system becomes your strength when feelings fail. Because feelings are inconsistent, they follow weather patterns, not purpose. You'll have days when you don't feel like showing up. Days when your energy is low, your confidence is weak, your mind is noisy. That's where most people stop. But that's where systems step in. A system doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're inspired. It just runs. That's how real progress happens. Not through emotion but through execution. If your habits are driven by how you feel, your life will always be unpredictable. But if your habits are driven by system, your growth becomes inevitable. So instead of chasing motivation, start building infrastructure. Create daily rituals that push you forward, even when willpower dies. Plan your mornings with intention. Design your environment around focus. Set cues and triggers that make the right actions automatic. Because when structure replaces struggle, success becomes sustainable. Motivation is the spark. Systems are the wiring. Without the wiring, the spark burns out. That's why so many people start strong and finish weak. They're waiting for feeling to sustain what only systems can maintain. The ones who win, the ones who evolve, they don't rely on the wave. They build the current. You can't build a disciplined life on emotional energy. You build it on strategy. Structure is strength disguised as simplicity. Your system doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to exist. Because even an average plan executed daily beats an excellent plan executed occasionally. You don't need more motivation. You need less decision-making. Automate the right habits so your focus is reserved for growth, not resistance. That's what separates consistent achievers from emotional chasers. So ask yourself, where in your life are you relying on motivation instead of system? Where do you keep saying, "I'll start when I feel ready"? And how much longer are you willing to let inconsistency define your identity? You already know what needs to be done. Now design your life to make doing it non-negotiable. Because freedom isn't found in waiting for energy, it's found in removing excuses. Motivation is overrated, systems win. Emotion fades, structure remains. Create daily rituals that push you forward even when willpower dies. Because when your systems are strong, your success stops being emotional and starts being inevitable. Chapter 4. Rebuild trust with yourself. You can't grow while doubting your own word. Because every goal, every plan, every dream depends on one thing: trust. And not trust in others. Trust in yourself. Self-doubt isn't born from failure, it's born from inconsistency. Every time you make a promise and don't keep it, you weaken that trust. Every broken word becomes a quiet message to your subconscious: I can't rely on me. And when that belief takes root, discipline dies. Confidence isn't built by praise. It's built by proof. You don't need more motivation. You need more credibility with yourself. Because self-trust is the foundation of self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of self-development. If you say you'll wake up early and don't, you chip away at that foundation. If you say you'll start the project and delay again, another crack forms. If you promise to change and don't follow through, the structure weakens. It's not the missed task that hurts you, it's the message it sends: my words don't mean much. You can't build a powerful life on broken promises. And you can't grow when your mind doesn't trust your mouth. Every time you say, "Tomorrow I'll do better," and don't, your subconscious records that failure. It doesn't judge you. It just collects data. And over time, that data becomes doubt. Your mind learns that your words are emotional, not dependable. So when you set another goal, your brain doesn't resist the goal, It resists the memory of disappointment. That's why it's not laziness you're fighting, it's distrust. Rebuilding that trust starts small. Not by promising big, but by proving small. Keep one small promise daily. Not 10, not 5, just one. Wake up when you said you would. Drink that glass of water before reaching for your phone. Write that one page. Read that one chapter. Small wins rebuild credibility. Small consistency rewires confidence. Because integrity compounds. Every time you follow through, you send your mind a signal, I can depend on myself again. And that signal grows stronger with every repetition. This is how self-trust is rebuilt, not through intensity but through reliability. Not by making grand promises but by keeping humble ones. You don't need perfection, you need proof. You don't need massive success, you need momentum. Each day you follow through, you lay a new brick of belief. And one day that belief becomes an unshakable wall of confidence. The reason most people stay stuck isn't because they lack ability, it's because they've stopped believing their own words. They've broken too many inner contracts. They said they'd start. They said they'd change. They said, this time is different. And then they didn't. So now, every time they try again, their brain whispers, we've heard this before. That's not negativity. That's experience. And the only way to silence that voice isn't through hype, it's through history. Give your mind new evidence. Show it consistency. You don't have to rebuild trust overnight. You just have to start keeping promises that your past self would believe. Start small enough that failure isn't even an option. Because trust grows faster with small wins than it ever could with impossible goals. Say you'll meditate for 2 minutes, not an hour. Say you'll write one paragraph, not a book. Say you'll exercise for 10 minutes, not run a marathon. Why? Because finishing small builds faith. And faith fuels follow-through. When you can count on yourself for small things, you'll soon be able to count on yourself for anything. This is what people miss. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's about preservation. You're preserving your integrity through action. You're keeping your soul in alignment with your word. And that kind of integrity builds something sacred, peace. Not the peace of doing nothing, but the peace of knowing you're becoming reliable again. Because nothing feels heavier than being at war with your own promises. And nothing feels lighter than finally keeping them. When you trust yourself again, you stop chasing validation. You stop asking for approval. You stop explaining your worth. Because self-trust makes you independent from external permission. You stop waiting for someone to believe in you, because you already do. That's what people feel when they meet someone grounded, consistent, calm. It's not arrogance, it's integrity. They're meeting someone whose inner and outer words match. And that alignment radiates power. So if you've been breaking promises, stop blaming yourself and start rebuilding yourself. Don't drown in guilt, design new evidence. Don't wait for confidence, earn it. Say less, do more. Make smaller promises but honor them completely. Because it's not the scale of the promise that matters, it's the consistency of the proof. Over time, that proof becomes identity. And once discipline becomes identity, effort becomes effortless. You don't need to start over, you need to start honoring over. Honoring the version of you that's waiting to trust again. Keep one promise today, then another tomorrow, and one more the next day. Let your words and actions finally shake hands again. Because every follow-through restores confidence. Every small win rebuilds credibility. And every act of discipline renews love for yourself. Rebuild trust with yourself. You can't grow while doubting your own word. You can't lead a strong life on weak promises. Keep small promises daily, that's how integrity compounds. Because when you trust yourself again, you don't just change your habits. You reclaim your identity. And that's the moment you stop saying, someday, and start proving, now. Chapter 5. Your habits prove who you really are. You are not your goals, you are your patterns. Because goals show your intentions, but habits reveal your identity. Everyone says they want growth. Everyone says they want peace, success, freedom. But the truth? Your daily actions are the only real vote you cast for the kind of person you're becoming. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. You don't become what you wish for, you become what you repeat. And that's the hardest truth most people avoid. Your habits tell the truth your words won't. You can tell the world what you want, but your habits expose what you value. You can post motivation, but your routine proves your priorities. You can talk about discipline, but your patterns show your devotion. Because your habits don't lie. They quietly broadcast who you really are when no one's watching. What you do consistently defines you more than what you say occasionally. Character isn't in declarations, it's in daily decisions. Every morning routine, every reaction, every small choice, they're all forming your real identity. Not the one you imagine, but the one you live. Your habits are the mirror of your discipline. They reflect your truth with brutal honesty. If you spend hours scrolling but say you don't have time, your habits tell the truth. If you skip your priorities but chase distractions, your habits tell the truth. If you say you want to grow but you're not acting differently, your habits tell the truth. Your habits don't judge you, they just measure you. They don't ask for promises, they ask for patterns. You can't fake consistency. You can't pretend progress. You can only prove it through what you do repeatedly. That's why discipline matters more than desire. Because desire makes you dream, but discipline makes you different. Your habits are not random, they're rehearsed. You've trained yourself into who you are right now, consciously or not. The way you spend your time, the thoughts you entertain, the people you engage with, all of it forms a feedback loop. A system that reinforces your identity every single day. If you want to change your life, you don't need a new vision, you need a new rhythm. Change the loop and you change your level. Ask yourself this: if someone followed you around for 24 hours, would they see the person you say you want to be, or the one you've been settling for? Would your routine inspire them? Would your discipline earn respect? Would your focus match your goals? Because your life doesn't respond to your affirmations, it responds to your habits. You can say, "I'm focused," but if distraction owns your day, your results will disagree. You can say, "I'm disciplined," but if comfort wins every decision, your progress will reveal the truth. Your habits are the receipts of your growth. Every day you're writing a story through repetition. The problem is, most people never stop to read what they've been writing. That's why self-awareness begins with an audit, a habit audit. Not to shame yourself, but to see yourself clearly. Where is your time going? What triggers your distractions? What actions make you feel alive, and which drain your energy? Audit your habits with honesty, not emotion. Because clarity is power and self-deception is paralysis. You can't improve what you won't examine. Small habits tell big truths. What time you wake up, how you start your morning, how you end your night, how often you keep promises to yourself. These tiny behaviors look insignificant, but they form the foundation of your destiny. It's not the grand moments that shape your life, it's the quiet repetitions no one sees. Because small decisions, multiplied daily, become the difference between potential and proof. So don't ask, "Who do I want to be?" Ask, "What habits does that version of me have?" If you want to be confident, what would confident people do every day? If you want to be disciplined, what would a disciplined person's routine look like? If you want peace, what would peaceful people protect and avoid? Adopt the habits and the identity will follow. You don't need to become them, you just need to behave like them until it feels natural. Because repetition creates reality. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And your majority wins. Your repeated actions, not your rare moments, decide your destiny. That's why it's never about being perfect. It's about being patterned. You can fail, you can miss days, you can fall short. But if your patterns are aligned, you'll always rise again. Because identity is built in direction, not perfection. Your job isn't to impress anyone, it's to align your habits with your highest self. The truth is, your future is already visible. It's written in your current habits. Look closely and you'll see exactly where you're heading. If your days are filled with distraction, your dreams will remain distant. If your days are structured with purpose, your results will compound. Your habits are the blueprint. They predict your trajectory more accurately than motivation ever could. So don't chase inspiration, audit execution. Don't set new goals, strengthen new routines. That's how transformation becomes inevitable. Your habits prove who you really are. You are not your goals, you are your patterns. Because words can lie, but repetition never does. Daily habits reveal your real priorities, not your intentions. Audit them with honesty. Refine them with purpose. Repeat them with pride. Because every habit you build is a conversation with your future. And your future is always listening. Chapter 6. Comfort is your real enemy. Comfort whispers, "You've done enough." Growth screams, "Not yet." That's the battle every achiever faces. The quiet war between who you are and who you're capable of becoming. Comfort doesn't always show up as laziness. Sometimes it disguises itself as peace, as self-care, as taking it easy for now. But comfort is clever. It doesn't destroy your life overnight. It slowly dissolves your discipline. It convinces you to stop pushing right before the breakthrough. And it replaces your hunger with hesitation. Comfort is your real enemy, not fear, not failure, not rejection. Because while fear tests you and failure teaches you, comfort traps you. Feels safe, familiar, warm, but underneath it's the slowest kind of poison. The kind that kills potential one excuse at a time. Comfort tells you to settle, to wait, to do it later, to slow down because you deserve a break. And the dangerous part? It always sounds reasonable. That's why comfort wins more battles than difficulty ever could. Easy choices build soft minds. Hard choices build strong character. Every time you pick the easy route, you weaken the muscle that makes change possible. Every time you avoid struggle, you rob yourself of strength. Growth doesn't come from what's comfortable. It comes from resistance. Just like your body grows under pressure, your mind grows under challenge. If you never strain, you never strengthen. If you never push, you never progress. That's why comfort isn't peace, it's paralysis. The people who evolve aren't the ones who always feel ready. They're the ones who act when it's uncomfortable. They've learned that pain isn't punishment, it's the process. Comfort whispers, "You've earned a break." Discipline replies, "I've earned consistency." Because the moment you start negotiating with comfort, you start surrendering your edge. You start giving up the identity you worked so hard to build. The truth is, growth doesn't require motivation. It requires exposure. Exposure to discomfort, to challenge, to resistance. That's where evolution begins. Train your body and mind to crave effort over ease. That's how you rewire your system for success. You can't expect strength from a life that never demands it. You can't expect confidence from a path that never tests it. The more you avoid discomfort, the weaker your tolerance for it becomes. But the more you embrace it, the stronger you get, not just mentally but emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Every hard thing you do today makes the next hard thing easier. Effort compounds. So does avoidance. One builds power. The other builds excuses. Think about it. When was the last time you truly challenged yourself? Not just worked hard but strained for something greater. Growth doesn't happen in repetition of the known. It happens in the discovery of the uncomfortable. In the moment your brain says, "I can't," and you prove it wrong anyway. Comfort makes you predictable. Discomfort makes you powerful. Because discomfort is information. It tells you exactly where your limits are. And that's the map to your next level. The truth most people don't want to face is this. If your days feel easy, your future will feel hard. If your days feel hard, your future will feel easy. The pain you avoid today becomes the regret you live with tomorrow. The pain you endure today becomes the peace you earn tomorrow. It's a trade, comfort now or confidence later. Ease now or evolution later. Growth always demands discomfort as the entrance fee. The problem is we confuse comfort with happiness. We think peace means avoiding pressure. But peace isn't found in avoiding work, it's found in mastering it. When you keep your promises, face resistance, and push your limits, you feel alive. Not comfortable but clear. Not relaxed but real. That's the feeling comfort can never give you, the quiet pride of knowing you chose effort over ease. You have to train your brain to see struggle differently. Instead of saying, "This is hard," say, "This is how I grow." Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," say, "I'm being conditioned for more." Because the truth is, everything you want, confidence, peace, mastery, respect, lives on the other side of discomfort. You won't find it in the easy path. You'll find it in the daily battles that demand more from you than you think you have to give. And over time, Those battles build a version of you that no comfort zone ever could. The disciplined mind doesn't crave relaxation, it craves progress. Not because it hates peace, but because it understands what peace costs. Real peace is earned, through growth, through consistency, through showing up when you'd rather not. So train yourself to find satisfaction in struggle. Train yourself to be proud of the work, not just the result. Because if you can love effort, you'll never be dependent on comfort again. You are meant to be challenged. You are built for resistance. And the only reason life feels dull sometimes is because you've stopped demanding more from yourself. The version of you that's waiting, the strong, clear, grounded version, is hidden behind discomfort. And the only way to reach them is through it. Comfort is your real enemy. Comfort whispers, "You've done enough." Growth screams, "Not yet." Don't let comfort convince you you're safe. It's only keeping you small. Choose effort over ease. Seek challenge over certainty. Because every time you step into discomfort, you step closer to becoming the person you promised yourself you'd be. And that's where real peace begins. Chapter 7. Stop seeking instant reward. Growth lives in delay, not in dopamine. Because anything you get instantly, you'll lose just as fast. The world has trained us to crave now. Instant results. Instant success. Instant validation. But the truth is, mastery doesn't happen in moments of pleasure. It happens in seasons of patience. The long road may not excite your emotions, but it's the only road that builds your evolution. Instant gratification kills the patience that mastery demands. We live in a world addicted to immediacy. Notifications, achievements, quick dopamine hits. We scroll for seconds and call it stimulation. We post and refresh, waiting for digital approval. We expect transformation in a week, peace in a day, success overnight. But growth, real growth, is never instant. It's quiet. It's slow. It's the kind of progress that hides behind repetition and discipline. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with validation. It just compounds silently. Instant reward feels good. Delayed reward feels powerful. The difference? One feeds ego. The other builds identity. When you choose what feels good now, you trade long-term fulfillment for short-term comfort. But when you delay gratification, you invest in a version of yourself that's worth the wait. You stop needing recognition because you start respecting the process. You stop craving approval because you start valuing consistency. That's the shift that separates amateurs from professionals, talkers from doers, dreamers from builders. Every strong person you admire, every master, every performer, every leader, has learned the art of waiting. They've trained themselves to love the long road. Because the long road builds the rarest kind of strength, patience. Not the passive kind, but the powerful kind. The kind that keeps going when the reward is nowhere in sight. The kind that trusts the process more than the payoff. They understand that quick results don't last. But slow mastery becomes identity. When you chase instant reward, you live in reaction. When you choose delayed reward, you live in design. Instant reward says, "I want it now." Discipline says, "I'll earn it later." And that's where the difference in destiny begins. In that moment where most people stop and you keep going. Every time you delay gratification, you're strengthening your emotional endurance. You're teaching your brain that satisfaction doesn't come from speed, it comes from substance. And that kind of patience rewires everything. Patience is the superpower of the disciplined. Because while everyone else is chasing quick wins, you're building a foundation too strong to shake. Delayed reward rewires your relationship with time. You stop fearing it. You start using it. Because time isn't your enemy, distraction is. Time doesn't take from you, impatience does. And when you finally stop rushing results, you start respecting the rhythm of real progress. That's where you find peace, not in the outcome, but in the pace of purpose. Instant gratification is the reason most people never reach mastery. They want to skip the repetition, the boring part. But mastery is the boring part. It's the thousands of unseen hours spent refining what others gave up on. It's the endless practice that no one claps for. It's doing the same thing better, again and again and again. Growth happens where excitement fades and consistency remains. Because the long road teaches you what the short path never will. the strength to keep going without applause. The long road tests your faith. It strips away your need for external validation. It humbles your ego. It sharpens your focus. And somewhere along that path, something shifts. You stop craving the finish line and start falling in love with the process. You start realizing that the journey is the destination, because the person you're becoming along the way is worth far more than the result you're chasing. Instant reward gives you pleasure. Delayed reward gives you power. And power, real, unshakable power, only grows in patience. We live in an era where everyone wants to be seen growing, but few are willing to grow in silence. They want the applause of progress without the loneliness of discipline. They want the praise without the patience. But here's the truth. There is no shortcut to greatness, because greatness is the long way. If you shortcut the process, you shortcut your potential. If you avoid the wait, you avoid the wisdom that waiting builds. Every season of delay is shaping something in you that speed could never teach. So train yourself to crave effort more than excitement. To love the discipline of progress more than the thrill of reward. To find joy in the process, even when no one's watching. Because mastery isn't a reward for those who rush. It's a reward for those who stay. The long road is where identity hardens, where character matures, where purpose becomes permanent. Every day you choose patience, you're proving you're not chasing dopamine, you're building destiny. Growth lives in delay, not in dopamine. Instant gratification will always feel tempting, but the long road will always be transformative. Because what comes fast leaves fast. What grows slow stays strong. Learn to love the long road, because that's where the rare ones are made. That's where strength becomes identity. And that's where you finally become who you said you'd be. Chapter 8. Failure is your greatest teacher. Every mistake is feedback. Every setback carries a lesson. That's not a motivational line. That's a law of growth. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the foundation of it. Every success story you admire was built on failed attempts, forgotten plans, and lessons learned the hard way. The difference between those who grow and those who give up isn't how much they fail. It's what they do with the failure. The mentally strong use failure as data, not identity. They don't see it as a verdict. They see it as valuable information. They don't say, I failed, so I'm not enough. They say, I failed, so now I know what doesn't work. The truth is, failure is not personal, it's practical. It's life's most direct form of feedback. When something doesn't work, life isn't rejecting you, it's redirecting you. It's saying, not this way. Try again differently. And if you're humble enough to listen instead of panic, failure will give you exactly what you need to level up. Because every loss hides a lesson. Every rejection reveals a redirection. Every breakdown is preparing you for a better build. But most people never get that far, because they take failure personally. They don't separate what failed from who they are. They fuse the two. So when they fail, they don't think, this method didn't work. They think, I didn't work. And that belief becomes a trap, a mental cage that stops them from ever trying again. But here's the truth. Failure doesn't define you, your response does. Failure doesn't shrink you, avoidance does. Failure doesn't hurt you, repetition without reflection does. Don't fear failure, fear repeating it because you refuse to learn. Because repetition without reflection isn't resilience, it's stubbornness. And stubbornness will make you feel like you're fighting the world, when in reality you're just fighting your own refusal to adapt. The mentally strong aren't afraid to fail, they're afraid to stay the same. They'd rather take 10 losses that lead to wisdom than one win that teaches nothing. That's the mindset that separates growth from guilt, curiosity over criticism. Every time you fail, you're given two options: to react or to review. Reacting means letting emotion take over. You spiral, you quit, you label yourself as not good enough. Reviewing means stepping back and asking the only question that matters. What is this failure trying to teach me? Because once you ask that question, the emotion fades, and education begins. Failure becomes a teacher, not a trauma. It becomes a guide, not a ghost. And instead of haunting you, it starts helping you. Here's what mentally strong people understand. Failure is information, not insult. It's a message, not a mark of shame. Every time you fail, Life hands you a report card on your strategy, not your soul. It's not saying you're incapable. It's saying you need improvement. And that's good news, because improvement is always possible. You can't control outcomes, but you can always control adjustments. You can't control luck, but you can control learning. You can't control failure, but you can control what it becomes. When you study failure, you start to realize something powerful. Each mistake is a mirror showing you where you stopped paying attention, where you relied on assumption instead of awareness, where you moved from clarity to comfort. Failure exposes the truth your ego tries to hide. It humbles you. And humility is the first step to mastery. Because pride refuses correction, but humility turns correction into power. The greatest performers, the most disciplined minds, they all share one trait. They analyze, not agonize. They don't waste energy on blame or shame. They break things down like scientists. What worked? What didn't? What will I try next time? That's why their growth looks effortless. Because they've turned failure into feedback loops. They fail forward, not backward. Each loss sharpens the system. Each setback strengthens the structure. And slowly that structure turns into stability. But here's the part no one likes to admit. Failure hurts. No matter how wise you are, it still stings. And that's okay. Pain doesn't mean you're weak, it means you cared. The goal isn't to avoid the sting, it's to not get stuck in it. Feel it, face it, learn from it, then let it go. Because if you hold on to failure too long, it becomes fear. And fear will stop you from ever finding the lesson you were meant to learn. Failure is your teacher, not your punishment. It's not trying to break you, it's trying to build you. It's removing the parts of you that can't survive your next level. That's what makes failure sacred. It's the most honest mentor you'll ever meet. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't lie. It gives you the truth you need to grow, not the comfort you want to hear. And if you listen, it will turn you into something stronger than success ever could. Every mistake is feedback. Every setback carries a lesson. Don't waste them by reacting. Study them. Write them down. Refine your system. Because wisdom is just failure processed correctly. The mentally strong don't run from failure, they report to it. They use it as a mirror, a mentor, a map. And that's why they keep evolving while everyone else keeps avoiding. Failure is your greatest teacher. It doesn't end your story, it edits it. It doesn't weaken you, it reveals where to grow stronger. So stop fearing it. Start learning from it. Because the faster you fail and the deeper you reflect, the faster you'll evolve into who you were meant to become. Chapter 9. Train your mind like an athlete. Consistency isn't luck, it's repetition under resistance. Every challenge is a rep in your mental gym. And just like your body, your mind only grows when it's pushed past comfort. Your focus, your patience, your resilience, these are muscles. And like any muscle, if you don't train them, they weaken. Your mind is either in training or in decline. There's no neutral state. Think about how an athlete trains. They don't show up only when it's easy. They don't stop because it hurts. They know the pain is part of progress. They understand that pressure doesn't break them, it builds them. Every rep, every lap, every drop of sweat has one purpose: conditioning. The same principle applies to your mind. The more resistance you face, the more mental strength you build, if you stay consistent through it. Consistency is not born from comfort, it's born from confrontation. Your mind learns discipline the same way your muscles learn endurance, through repetition. Not by talking about it, not by waiting for motivation, but by doing it again. Repetition creates reliability. And reliability creates identity. That's how the strongest minds are built, through thousands of unseen, uncelebrated reps. Early mornings. Quiet evenings. Moments when quitting seemed easier, but they kept going anyway. Each act of persistence adds another layer of resilience. Each repetition says, "I'm not done yet." Most people train their bodies and ignore their minds. They work out their muscles but not their mental endurance. They build strength for the gym but not for life. And when life tests them, when failure hits, when plans fall apart, they crumble not because they're weak but because they never built mental toughness. Your mind needs resistance. It needs friction. It needs daily training against pressure and distraction. That's how you turn fragility into fortitude. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to train. Every delay, every rejection, every setback, all of it is part of your mental workout plan. When things get hard, your mind is lifting heavier weight. When people doubt you, your patience is running a marathon. When you feel like quitting, your discipline is being tested for endurance. Don't curse the resistance, use it. That's your gym. That's where strength is built. The mentally strong treat pressure differently. They don't run from it, they rehearse with it. They use hard days as practice. Because they know if you only train when you feel good, you'll fail when you don't. The true test of mastery is execution without emotion. That's what separates the mentally fit from the mentally fragile. They don't need ideal conditions to perform. They create performance through discipline. Training your mind means doing the boring work consistently. Reading when you'd rather scroll. Reflecting when you'd rather distract. Finishing what you start when you'd rather delay. The small, unglamorous habits. Those are your mental push-ups. Every time you follow through, your focus gets sharper. Every time you delay gratification, your patience gets stronger. Every time you stay calm through chaos, your emotional muscle grows. Your life mirrors your training. Train soft, live soft. Train hard, live strong. The best athletes understand something most people miss. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. When pressure comes, you don't become better. You reveal what you've built. That's why your daily habits matter more than your goals. The way you handle small challenges predicts how you'll handle big ones. The way you think under stress determines how far you'll go under success. Every reaction is a repetition. Every moment of restraint is another mental rep. And over time, those reps create a champion mindset. You can't control the difficulty of life, but you can control your conditioning for it. You can choose to turn every obstacle into training. You can decide that every uncomfortable moment is a chance to build mental muscle. Because that's all growth really is, repetition under resistance. Your dream life requires stamina, not just strategy. It requires a mind strong enough to stay focused when everything else gets loud. Train that focus. Train that patience. Train that resilience. Daily. Here's the truth. You can't think your way to strength. You have to train your way there. Your mind will quit long before your body does. So teach it to keep going. Teach it through action, through consistency, through commitment to effort over emotion. That's how discipline becomes instinct. Because once you've trained your mind to push past resistance, life can't intimidate you anymore. You'll stop fearing hard things, you'll start craving them. Because you'll know that every challenge is just another rep in your evolution. Consistency isn't luck, it's repetition under resistance. And growth isn't random, it's reps recorded over time. Every challenge is training. Every failure is feedback. Every day is a workout for your mindset. The mentally strong don't seek ease, they seek endurance. Because they know every rep of resilience prepares them for the weight of success. Train your mind like an athlete. Your focus, patience, and resilience are muscles. Build them daily. Because strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes from repetition under resistance. And the more you train your mind to perform, especially when it hurts, the more unstoppable you become. Chapter 10. Decide who you refuse to be. Growth isn't just about becoming more, it's about eliminating less. Because evolution isn't only addition, it's subtraction. It's not just who you become that matters, it's who you stop being. You can't move forward if you're still dragging the weight of who you were. So before you ask, who do I want to be? Ask, who do I refuse to remain? Because real transformation begins with rejection. The rejection of your old limits, your old habits, your old excuses. Every version of you exists in layers. The strong one, the scared one, the lazy one, the driven one. And every day you're casting votes for which version stays alive. The problem isn't that people don't know what they want to become. It's that they keep resurrecting who they said they'd bury. They say they want growth, but they still feed the habits that kill it. They say they want clarity, but they still entertain the noise. They say they want peace, but they still chase validation. You can't become the next version of yourself while protecting the one you're supposed to outgrow. Decide who you refuse to be. That's where real discipline begins. Discipline isn't just the commitment to your goals, It's the courage to kill your excuses. To look at your patterns and say, this version of me doesn't get to continue. You can't keep telling stories that defend your limitations and expect freedom. You can't keep blaming circumstances and expect change. There's a point where self-awareness becomes self-sabotage. When you know what's wrong but you still choose not to change it. Growth requires honesty, and honesty often hurts before it heals. So take a hard look at your life, at your habits, at your mindset, at the people you keep around because you're afraid to be alone. Ask yourself, what patterns keep pulling me back to the person I'm trying to leave behind? The procrastination, the comfort-seeking, the emotional impulsiveness, the lack of boundaries, the overthinking disguised as planning. You know them. You've met them every day. And now it's time to tell them, you don't get to come with me. Growth is not addition without deletion. It's not more habits, more books, more affirmations. Sometimes it's less. Less noise. Less comparison. Less justification. You don't always need to add to become more. Sometimes you need to shed. Like a snake sheds its skin, like a tree sheds its leaves. You have to release parts of yourself that no longer fit your next season. The version of you that avoids hard work, let it die here. The version that waits for permission, let it die here. The version that settles for almost, let it die here. Because until something in you dies, something new can't live. Growth begins when you define your boundaries, not just with others but with yourself. Decide what you'll no longer tolerate, from your thoughts, your habits, and your excuses. That's the moment self-respect becomes self-reinvention. You can't evolve while being loyal to your comfort zone. You can't rewrite your story if you keep protecting the chapter that broke you. Every transformation requires a funeral. You must bury the identity that belongs to the past. That version of you, the one who hesitated, who avoided, who broke their own promises. They serve their purpose. But they can't lead your future. Growth doesn't ask, what do I want? It asks, what am I no longer willing to accept? Because the moment you define your no, your yes gains power. When you stop saying yes to distractions, your focus multiplies. When you stop saying yes to mediocrity, your standard rises. When you stop saying yes to your old story, your new one begins. The fastest way to change your life is to stop negotiating with your old identity. The truth is, becoming better isn't complicated. It's just painful. It's not a mystery how to improve. You already know what to do. You're just afraid to let go of the version of you that doesn't want to do it. That version is comfortable, familiar, predictable. But comfort is not loyalty. Comfort is captivity. And the longer you hold on to that version, the longer you delay your evolution. You have to make a decision right now. A line in the sand moment. Ask yourself, who do I refuse to be from this point forward? Refuse to be the person who quits when it's hard. Refuse to be the one who seeks motivation instead of building discipline. Refuse to be the one who keeps breaking their own word. You've carried that version long enough. You've repeated that story long enough. This is where it ends. This is where you choose to bury your weakness, your excuses, your fear. Because rebirth only begins after release. Growth isn't always about more. Sometimes it's about no more. No more waiting. No more overthinking. No more comfort in chaos. When you decide who you refuse to be, your next chapter writes itself. Because clarity isn't found in what you add. It's found in what you finally let go of. Decide who you refuse to be. Because until you do, you'll keep living the same story in a different year. Growth isn't just about becoming more, it's about eliminating less. Identify the habits, distractions, and excuses that sabotage your progress. Define the version of you that dies here, right now. And once you do, don't mourn it. Celebrate it. Because the death of your old self is the birth of who you said you'd be. Chapter 11. Stop negotiating with excuses. Weakness disguises itself as reason. Discipline exposes the lie. Every time you rationalize comfort, you delay progress. Treat excuses as enemies, not opinions. Because that's exactly what they are. Enemies wearing friendly faces. Excuses sound smart, they sound logical, they even sound kind. But they exist for one purpose, to keep you small. Excuses are comfort's greatest weapon. They don't stop you with force, they stop you with logic. They whisper, You're tired. You've done enough today. You'll start tomorrow. And for a moment it sounds reasonable. But reason without responsibility is ruin. The truth is, most people don't fail because they can't. They fail because they negotiate. They argue with their goals. They bargain with their standards. They let emotion become the lawyer defending their limitations. Every excuse begins as a thought. And the moment you give that thought a voice, it begins to sound like truth. I'll rest for just a bit. I'll eat better next week. I'll get serious when things calm down. Those phrases sound harmless, but they're the slow erosion of discipline. And discipline doesn't collapse overnight. It decays through negotiation. Weakness doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just whispers, "You deserve a break." And the problem isn't rest, it's justification. Rest when earned restores you. Rest when rationalized robs you. When you start needing a reason to avoid the work, you've already started losing the war. Because excuses don't need to be true to be effective. They just need to be believable enough to stop you from acting. The disciplined don't reason with their emotions, they run their system. They understand that if every day became a debate, progress would die in the courtroom of maybe later. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They say, "It's time." That's the mindset shift. Excuses are not something you listen to. They're something you outperform. You don't have to defeat them with emotion, just with execution. The problem is your mind is persuasive. It knows how to talk you out of your own greatness. It knows your weak spots, the phrases that calm your guilt and justify your delay. That's why the strongest people are not the ones who never hear excuses. They're the ones who've trained themselves not to obey them. They feel the same resistance. They hear the same internal arguments. But they've learned how to recognize the difference between truth and trap. Discipline doesn't silence excuses, it outlasts them. When your brain says, "You can skip today," discipline replies, "Skipping today means starting over tomorrow." When your mind says, "You deserve a break," discipline answers, "I deserve results." When weakness whispers, "You're tired," discipline reminds you, "I've done more with less." It's not about ignoring how you feel, it's about not worshiping how you feel. Because emotion is temporary. But the cost of giving in is permanent. The truth is, every excuse costs something. It doesn't just steal a day, it steals momentum. And momentum is everything. When you keep your promises, you build self-trust. When you break them, you break that trust. And excuses are the quiet assassins of self-belief. They don't kill dreams with noise, they do it silently, one compromise at a time. You'll tell yourself, "It's just today." But discipline knows, today becomes tomorrow and tomorrow becomes a pattern. That's why the mentally strong don't negotiate with excuses, they recognize them for what they are. Disguised distractions trying to steal their potential. Excuses sound like care, but they're control. They keep you safe, not successful. They protect you from pain, not from mediocrity. Your growth will demand discomfort, and excuses will always offer comfort. That's their trap. They promise peace but deliver regret. You can't live a life of progress while making peace with the voices that protect your weakness. So treat excuses like enemies. When they show up, expose them. Write them down, call them out, destroy their disguise. Because once you name an excuse, it loses its power. Discipline is the cure for negotiation. It's the act of doing what you said you'd do, especially when your emotions file for exceptions. It's not a feeling. It's not an argument. It's a decision followed by action. The disciplined mind doesn't wait for silence. It moves through noise. Because it knows that progress doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from persistence under pressure. You have to decide what kind of conversation you're willing to have with yourself. A conversation built on excuses, or one built on execution. You can keep arguing for your limitations, or you can build evidence of your potential. But you can't do both. The next time your mind tries to negotiate, pause and ask, "Is this truth, or is this fear trying to sound reasonable?" You'll know the answer by how it makes you feel. Truth challenges you. Excuses comfort you. Choose challenge. Every time. Stop negotiating with excuses. Weakness disguises itself as reason. Discipline exposes the lie. Every time you rationalize comfort, you delay progress. Excuses will always sound convincing, until results speak louder. So treat them as enemies, not opinions. Because every time you silence an excuse, you strengthen the voice of the person you promised yourself you'd become. Chapter 12. Keep going when nobody's watching. Real growth happens in silence, when no one's clapping, when there's no audience, no validation, no spotlight. It happens in the quiet hours where consistency replaces applause, where you do the work not because someone is watching, but because you made a promise. That's where mastery lives. Not in recognition, but in repetition. If you need validation, you'll never find mastery. Because the ones who master themselves aren't chasing approval, they're chasing alignment. They know that true progress isn't loud. It's built in silence, maintained in solitude, and revealed in time. When you're growing, you'll have seasons where nobody notices. You'll be working harder than ever, and it'll look like nothing's changing. You'll be disciplined, consistent, focused, and the world will stay silent. That's when most people quit. They confuse silence for failure. They think progress should be praised to be real. But real progress doesn't need witnesses, it just needs you. Because what's built in public rarely lasts if it wasn't built in private first. The truth is, the grind is not glamorous. It's lonely. It's repetitive. It's quiet. No one applauds the early mornings. No one celebrates the nights you stayed focused instead of distracted. No one claps for the decisions that look ordinary but create extraordinary outcomes over time. But that's what separates the consistent from the casual, the disciplined from the dreamers. You don't build greatness for recognition. You build it because you said you would. If you only show up when someone's watching, you'll never become the person worth watching. Discipline means doing the right thing, even when it's invisible, even when it feels thankless, even when it doesn't look like it's working. Because that's what builds integrity. And integrity is the foundation of every form of success. You're not proving anything to anyone, you're proving something to yourself. Keep going when it's quiet. Keep going when the excitement fades. Keep going when it feels like no one cares. Because in those moments, you're building something others can't see yet. Every rep, every decision, every act of self-control, they're all invisible bricks in the structure of your future. And one day when it finally shows, people will call it luck. They won't see the silence. They won't see the hours of unseen consistency that built the foundation. But you'll know. And that's enough. Validation feels good, but it's a trap. It trains your worth to depend on noise. And once your worth depends on noise, silence becomes unbearable. That's why so many people can't stay consistent. They mistake quiet for emptiness when quiet is where character grows. The gym of greatness has no audience. The real work happens behind closed doors. When it's just you, your thoughts, and the choice to keep going anyway. Mastery is not built in motivation, it's built in maintenance. And maintenance is quiet. It's the repetition of the same discipline long after the emotion has left. It's not exciting. It's not impressive. But it's effective. If you want to build something unshakable, you must fall in love with invisible effort. The kind that nobody praises, but everyone envies when it finally pays off. When you work for applause, you hand your power to other people. When you work for purpose, you take that power back. Because applause fades. Trends change. Attention moves on. But purpose, that stays. That's what keeps you grounded when nobody's clapping. Purpose whispers, keep going. When validation screams, stop, nobody's watching. The truth is, nobody's supposed to watch. The world doesn't owe you recognition for your progress. You owe yourself consistency even when it's invisible. Because the real reward isn't attention. It's alignment. It's walking into the mirror every morning and knowing you're becoming who you said you'd be. And that feeling, that quiet pride, will always outlast applause. Every day you keep your word when nobody's watching, you strengthen your character. Every time you show up without credit, you're training for mastery. Every time you follow through in silence, you're teaching your mind that the work matters more than the witness. That's when growth becomes permanent, when it's no longer fueled by attention, but by accountability. You're not building for approval anymore. You're building for alignment. And alignment always wins. So keep going when nobody's watching. Keep building in silence. Keep perfecting your craft when it feels pointless. Because it's not pointless, it's preparation. The spotlight will come when you're ready, and you'll be ready because you stayed when nobody saw you. The world claps for results. But the wise know, results are just reflections of silent consistency. Keep going when nobody's watching. Real growth happens in silence when no one's clapping. If you need validation, you'll never find mastery. Build for yourself, not for applause. Because when you no longer need to be seen to keep moving forward, you've already won the hardest battle, becoming your own source of power. Chapter 13. Use boredom as a training ground. Greatness is forged in repetition, not excitement. Boredom is where most people quit, but it's where consistency compounds. Learn to love the quiet grind, because that's where the magic grows. The truth is, boredom is not your enemy, it's your test. It's the gatekeeper between average and extraordinary. Most people chase motivation because they're addicted to novelty. They want something new, something thrilling, something that keeps them stimulated. But mastery isn't built in excitement, it's built in monotony. The ones who rise to greatness are the ones who can repeat the same simple habits for years without needing the dopamine of constant change. Boredom is where discipline either breaks or hardens. It's where you find out if you're driven by emotion or commitment. Because anyone can show up when it's new, when it's fun, when it feels good. But real growth begins when it's dull, predictable, and repetitive, and you show up anyway. The gym is the same. The page is the same. The routine is the same. But you're changing quietly through consistency. That's the secret most people miss. Boredom doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means transformation is happening beneath the surface. The world glorifies hustle and excitement. But the truth is, the greats aren't chasing thrill, they're chasing precision. They've trained themselves to find meaning in repetition. They know that the work that looks boring is often the work that builds brilliance. Every musician repeats the same scales until their hands move like instinct. Every athlete drills the same motions until their body becomes automatic. Every writer, every creator, every disciplined person lives in the same rhythm. The rhythm of refinement. Boredom isn't the absence of progress, it's the birthplace of mastery. Your mind will fight it. It will tell you that repetition is pointless, that you're stuck, that you need something new. That's not truth, that's impatience. And impatience is how average minds destroy their own growth. Because they mistake familiarity for stagnation. They think if it's not exciting, it's not effective. But progress doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just compounds quietly in the background. While you're bored, your brain is building endurance. While you're repeating, your habits are solidifying. While you're consistent, your identity is hardening. You're evolving, even when it feels like nothing's changing. Boredom is your mental gym. It's where attention gets trained and focus gets fortified. Every time you stay with the task when your mind wants to wander, you're building the muscle of mastery. That's what the undisciplined never understand. They confuse excitement with progress and distraction with freedom. But freedom isn't doing what you want. It's mastering yourself enough to do what you need, even when it's boring. The truth is, boredom is a mirror. It reflects how deeply you're connected to your purpose. If you can stay consistent without stimulation, it means your why is stronger than your mood. It means you're driven by principle, not by pleasure. And that's when you start separating yourself from everyone else. Because everyone loves growth when it's exciting, but only a few love it when it's quiet. That's why most people stop before greatness ever finds them. They mistake boredom for a sign to quit, when it's actually a signal to keep going. The moment you learn to love boredom, you unlock the one skill that guarantees success: patience. Because boredom and patience live side by side. And if you can master both, you become unstoppable. You'll start to see what others can't. That the grind isn't punishment, it's preparation. That the repetition isn't a trap, it's a teacher. The quiet days, the uneventful hours, the unglamorous routines. They're all the foundation of a life that doesn't fall apart. When nothing feels exciting, remember, this is the part that shapes your character. This is the part that builds your mental armor. This is the part that most people avoid, and where you'll gain your advantage. Every rep you push through in boredom is building consistency. Every act of discipline in monotony is forging strength. Every silent hour of effort is proof that your purpose doesn't depend on attention. That's how you become unbreakable, not through bursts of energy but through quiet persistence. So the next time you feel bored, don't run from it. Sit in it. Breathe in it. Use it. That's your training ground. That's where your future self is being built, in silence, in stillness, in repetition. Boredom doesn't mean stop. It means stay. Stay until focus becomes instinct. Stay until effort feels normal. Stay until you can perform without needing praise or novelty. That's how you build unstoppable consistency, by mastering monotony. Greatness is forged in repetition, not excitement. And mastery isn't found in the moments you're thrilled. It's found in the moments you stay steady when no thrill remains. So the next time the grind feels dull, remember, that's where most people quit. But not you. You're not here for entertainment, you're here for evolution. And evolution grows quietly, right in the middle of boredom. Use boredom as a training ground. Because when you can love the quiet grind, you'll never depend on motivation again. That's where consistency compounds. That's where discipline deepens. That's where the magic grows, unseen but unstoppable. And one day the results will speak so loudly that silence won't bother you anymore. It'll remind you where your strength was born. Chapter 14. Control your emotions, command your mind. Emotional discipline is mental dominance. You can't lead your life if you're led by your moods. Calm is control. Train your reaction and you master your reality. Because emotions are powerful, but undisciplined emotion is chaos. The difference between strength and instability isn't what you feel, it's what you feed. You can feel anger, frustration, fear, and still remain powerful. If you don't let those emotions make your decisions for you. The strongest minds don't suppress emotion, they steer it. They don't fight their feelings, they train them. Most people live like emotional puppets. They let their feelings pull the strings of their actions. One bad mood can ruin their day. One disappointment can destroy their focus. One rejection can shake their identity. But here's the truth. You can't build a disciplined life with an undisciplined mind. And you can't build an undisciplined mind when your emotions rule the system. Because the moment your feelings run the show, your logic resigns. And when logic leaves, chaos enters. Control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose how to respond. Emotional control isn't numbness, it's maturity. It's the ability to pause before reacting, to breathe before exploding, to think before deciding. That pause, that split second of awareness, that's where power lives. Because the space between emotion and reaction is where wisdom grows. The truth is, most people react out of emotion and call it honesty. They say, I'm just being real. But real doesn't mean reactive. Being real means being responsible with what you feel. Honesty without control destroys relationships, focus, and peace. Controlled emotion, that's leadership. That's mental dominance. You can't master your day if you're mastered by your triggers. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself through frustration. Think of your mind like a battlefield, and your emotions like weather. Storms will come. Winds will rise. But you don't abandon the mission because it rains. You adapt, adjust, and stay focused. That's how mentally strong people operate. They don't demand perfect conditions. They maintain calm through chaos. They've trained their emotions to serve them, not sabotage them. Training your emotions starts with awareness. You can't control what you don't recognize. So start observing your triggers like a scientist, not a victim. When do you lose control? What thoughts set you off? What stories repeat in your mind when you're angry, anxious, or afraid? Awareness turns reaction into reflection. And reflection turns emotion into information. Once you understand what your emotions are teaching you, they stop controlling you, they start coaching you. The strongest people feel everything, they just don't act on everything. They can be hurt and still move forward. They can be frustrated and still stay consistent. They can be disappointed and still disciplined. That's emotional power, the ability to stay grounded when life shakes you. Because control isn't about killing emotion, it's about keeping your balance when it floods in. Your calm is your command center. And if you can keep calm when everything around you is loud, you've already won. Calm is control. In the storm, calm doesn't mean you're careless. It means you're composed. It means your peace is not negotiable. Because peace isn't passive, it's protection. It protects your focus, your energy, your mind. You can't think clearly when your emotions are screaming louder than your purpose. So train yourself to respond slower, breathe deeper, and think longer. The moment you learn to manage your reaction, you stop being reactive to life and start being in charge of it. Remember this. Your emotions are signals, not sentences. They don't define what happens next. You do. Anger is energy, use it for action. Fear is information, use it for awareness. Sadness is reflection, use it for depth. Every emotion has a purpose, but only if you control its direction. Because if you don't lead your emotions, they'll lead you into destruction disguised as expression. People who can't control their emotions always destroy what they love. Opportunities, relationships, focus, potential. Not because they're bad, but because they never learned to separate feeling from function. And when you let emotion drive, it always crashes logic. That's why calm is your greatest weapon. It's how you stay clear when everything else becomes chaotic. It's how you protect progress from impulsive moments. Emotional intelligence isn't softness, it's strategy. The next time you feel triggered, pause. Don't speak first. Don't act first. Don't rush. Breathe. Step back. Ask yourself, what's the wisest response right now? That question will save your peace more times than you can count. Because that moment of awareness is the birthplace of control. And every time you stay calm when you could have exploded, you're teaching your mind that you're in charge. That's how emotional discipline becomes instinct, through repetition of restraint. Control your emotions, command your mind. Emotional discipline is mental dominance. You can't lead your life if you're led by your moods. Your emotions are powerful, but only when you lead them. Train your reaction and you master your reality. Because once you learn to stay calm in chaos, nothing outside you can break what's steady inside you. Chapter 15. Create standards that scare you. Raise your bar so high it forces evolution. Because growth never happens inside your comfort zone, it happens at the edge of your limits. Your standards define your life. They decide what you tolerate, how you behave, and what you attract. They set the floor for your future, not the ceiling. If your standards don't intimidate you, they're too low. If they don't stretch you, they're just preferences, not principles. Standards are boundaries for your old self, and fuel for your future one. You can't build a new life with old expectations. You can't evolve while staying loyal to the limits that once felt safe. Your next level won't arrive through chance. It will arrive through challenge. Through the discomfort of expecting more from yourself than anyone else ever will. Because standards are self-respect in motion. They're how you show the world, and yourself, what you will and will not settle for. Every time you lower your standards, you teach your mind that average is acceptable. Every time you raise them, you send a message, I'm done playing small. The truth is, most people don't fail because of lack of talent. They fail because of low standards. They want a great life, but they accept mediocre effort. They want excellence, but they tolerate inconsistency. They want transformation, but they keep habits designed for survival, not success. Your life will always shrink to the size of your standards. If you don't demand more from yourself, life won't either. Because the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you require. And your standards are your requirements. Raise your bar. Set expectations that scare you a little. Because that fear means they're stretching you, forcing you to evolve. You shouldn't feel ready for the next level. You should feel challenged by it. Standards that scare you are standards that shape you. They make you sharper, more aware, more deliberate. They demand growth before granting reward. And that's the beauty of high standards. They filter your environment. People, habits, and mindsets that no longer align will fall away naturally. It's not rejection, it's refinement. Your standards are not just goals, they're guardians. They protect your time, your focus, your peace. When you decide, I don't miss workouts, you protect your health. When you say, I don't break promises to myself, you protect your integrity. When you hold the line on your focus and energy, you protect your future. Discipline is born when standards become non-negotiable. If you look around your life and don't like what you see, start with what you're allowing. What you tolerate teaches the world how to treat you. What you accept shapes what you expect. It's not that you're unlucky, it's that your standards aren't strict enough. And when you raise them, things change fast. Not because the world suddenly respects you, but because you start respecting yourself. That's the shift that transforms everything. When you stop settling for peace with your comfort zone, and start fighting for peace with your potential. Raising your standards doesn't mean becoming harsh, it means becoming honest. Ask yourself, what do I keep allowing that drains my energy? What do I keep excusing that destroys my progress? What am I pretending is fine when it's really holding me back? Be ruthless with the truth, because truth is the first step to transformation. You can't fix what you continue to excuse. And you can't rise above what you continue to rationalize. The moment you raise your standards, your life will get harder, and that's a good thing. Because growth will test every line you draw. It will ask, are you sure you mean it? And your actions will be your answer. You'll lose people. You'll lose habits. You'll lose comfort. But you'll gain clarity. You'll gain momentum. You'll gain self-respect. And once you taste that, you'll never go back to living below your potential again. The greatest freedom comes from the highest standards. Because when your bar is high, your path becomes simple. You don't waste energy on mediocrity. You don't chase validation. You don't negotiate your non-negotiables. You act, you execute, you evolve. You stop being at the mercy of motivation and start operating on identity. That's what high standards do. They turn effort into instinct. So set standards that make you uncomfortable. Expect things from yourself that most people would call too much. Because the moment you raise your expectations, you raise your energy. Your bar should scare your comfort zone and inspire your higher self. The more you stretch your limits, the stronger you get. The stronger you get, the freer you become. Freedom doesn't come from lowering expectations. It comes from living up to them. Create standards that scare you. Raise your bar so high it forces evolution. Because if your standards don't intimidate you, they're too low. And if they don't challenge your old self, they'll never create your new one. Standards are boundaries for who you were, and fuel for who you're becoming. So stop shrinking to fit comfort. Rise to meet your calling. And remember, the higher your standard, the higher your life will rise to meet it. Chapter 16. Failure without quitting is growth. The only true failure is stopping. Because failure is feedback. But quitting is final. You can fall, stumble, struggle, doubt, and lose and still grow. But the moment you stop showing up, you stop evolving. Growth doesn't reward perfection. It rewards persistence. It rewards those who show up again and again, even when the progress is invisible and the motivation is gone. Momentum rewards the persistent. Always. Here's the truth. Everyone fails. Everyone hits walls. Everyone feels stuck. The difference between those who rise and those who rot is that the strong keep showing up through it. They don't see failure as a dead end. They see it as a detour. They know the process is bigger than the pain. They don't stop just because it's slow. They don't quit just because it hurts. They keep showing up, especially when results lag. Because the ones who persist long enough always get rewarded by time. Growth is not measured by speed, it's measured by stamina. It's the ability to keep moving forward while everything around you feels motionless. You can't always control results. You can't always control timing. But you can control this, showing up anyway. Even when your confidence wavers. Even when the world doesn't clap. Even when the mirror shows no progress. Because progress doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It happens quietly, slowly, beneath the surface. And the only way to see it bloom is to keep watering the soil, even when it looks barren. Failure without quitting is strength disguised as struggle. It's how greatness builds endurance. Every mistake is teaching you. Every delay is developing you. Every obstacle is conditioning you. Most people give up right before growth starts to show. They misinterpret silence as failure, when in truth, silence is the setup. The work you do now, when it feels like nothing's moving, is the compound interest of success. And one day when the momentum catches, you'll realize it was all worth it. You have to learn to separate results from effort. Because results will always come later, effort must come now. You can't control when the reward appears, but you can control whether you're still there to receive it. And that's what persistence really is. A decision to stay in the game long enough to collect what patience has been building. Failure teaches you what doesn't work. Persistence teaches you what does. Together they build wisdom that shortcuts nothing and sustains everything. It's easy to be consistent when things are working. It's hard when they're not, and that's where your real growth begins. When the results slow down. When the world feels quiet. When you're questioning if any of it's worth it. That's the exact moment life is testing your commitment. Will you keep going when nothing pays off immediately? Will you keep your promises when the excitement fades? Will you stay disciplined when your progress goes invisible? Because that's when growth moves from concept to character. You'll never become unstoppable if you keep stopping when it's slow. You'll never see how powerful you are until you keep moving through a season that feels empty. Failure doesn't break you, quitting does. And every time you stand back up, you build evidence that you can. Even a crawl forward is progress. Even a breath in the middle of pain is persistence. You don't have to move fast, you just have to keep moving. Momentum isn't about intensity, it's about continuity. Because consistency doesn't need perfect days. It just needs you. Every great story of transformation shares one truth. The hero failed, but they never stopped showing up. That's the hidden formula. They failed, but they learned. They struggled, but they stayed. They doubted, but they decided to continue. That's why persistence feels painful. Because you're rewriting the instinct to give up. You're retraining your mind to understand that difficulty doesn't mean defeat. You're conditioning yourself to stay present even when the reward is delayed. And that is the definition of growth. Failure is the world's way of asking, how bad do you want this? It's not trying to stop you. It's trying to shape you, to strip away your weakness, to sharpen your focus, to strengthen your resolve. Because every setback is sandpaper. It smooths away the parts of you that can't survive your next level. That's why failure hurts, not because it's the end, but because it's transformation in progress. It's growth wearing a disguise. So don't quit, even when it feels pointless, even when no one sees your effort. Even when the numbers don't move and the progress feels distant. Keep showing up. Keep training. Keep refining. Because failure without quitting is growth. It's where character hardens. Where discipline becomes instinct. And where resilience becomes identity. The only true failure is stopping. Every other one is just data. Every setback is just redirection. Every delay is just development. Keep showing up with the same effort even when results lag. Momentum rewards the persistent, always, and the day you refuse to quit, the universe starts rearranging itself to meet your endurance, because the one who stays wins. Chapter 17. Environment builds or breaks discipline. Your surroundings either reinforce your focus or feed your weakness. Change your environment to support the person you're becoming, because you can't outgrow a space built for your old self. Discipline doesn't live in isolation. It breathes through environment. Your environment is not neutral. It's shaping you quietly, constantly, and completely. Every sound, every space, every person you keep around you is either sharpening your edge or softening your discipline. You can't expect to become focused in a world built for distraction. You can't build consistency in chaos. And you can't expect self-mastery while surrounding yourself with comfort. Your environment isn't just where you live. It's what you allow, what you consume, and what you normalize. If your space is filled with noise, you'll think rest is weakness. If your circle avoids growth, you'll start believing average is okay. If your habits live in clutter, your mind will mirror it. You don't rise above your environment. You rise through it. Discipline begins with design. Not motivation. Not willpower. Design. Because willpower fades, design remains. If you want to stay consistent, make it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong one. Remove the triggers that pull you backward. Add the cues that push you forward. Structure creates success, not emotion. When your environment supports your discipline, you don't need to fight temptation. You just flow with alignment. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings control their mind. You can't stay disciplined in an environment that constantly tempts you to be lazy. You can't stay focused around people who reward distraction. Every person in your life is either accountability or indulgence. They either remind you of your mission or make you forget it. Be honest about who's helping your growth and who's halting it. It's not about judgment, it's about alignment. If someone doesn't challenge your excuses, they're not your circle, they're your comfort zone. Discipline grows in friction. And friction is created when your environment demands your best. You need places, people, and patterns that make mediocrity uncomfortable. Spaces that push you to rise, not relax. People who talk about growth, not gossip. Habits that support your next level, not sabotage it. Your environment should remind you of your potential, not your past. That's why some people can't move forward. They keep trying to evolve in the same environment that broke their focus. You can't grow inside the same cage that once kept you safe. Look around your life. What do you see that belongs to your old self? Maybe it's clutter. Maybe it's habits. Maybe it's people. Maybe it's the noise you keep consuming, the endless scroll, the empty validation. Everything around you either whispers discipline or distraction. Everything you keep is either momentum or resistance. And every day you're choosing, consciously or not, which one you feed. You don't need a perfect environment to grow. You just need an intentional one. Start small. One clean space. One focused hour. One day with less noise. Every small upgrade in your environment compounds into focus. Every removed distraction frees energy for discipline. Because clarity doesn't come from motivation, it comes from management. And managing your environment is the purest form of self-respect. Your surroundings are mirrors. They reflect your standards. They show what you tolerate, what you prioritize, and what you neglect. If your space is chaotic, your mind will be too. If your schedule is unstructured, your focus will always drift. If your circle is complacent, your energy will always dim. But if your environment supports discipline, your life becomes simpler, not easier but clearer. Discipline thrives where distractions die. You can't outgrow an environment built for your old self. That version of you designed everything for comfort, not commitment. For ease, not evolution. So as you grow, your environment must evolve too. Your space, your people, your habits, all of it. If you want to become who you said you'd be, you can't live where your old self feels safe. You have to live where your future self feels challenged. And that means letting go of the places and patterns that no longer fit your potential. Change your environment, and you change your instinct. Change your surroundings, and you change your standards. Change what you normalize, and you change your life. Because discipline doesn't grow in chaos. It grows in control. And the easiest way to control yourself is to control what surrounds you. That's not restriction, that's freedom. Because when your environment supports your purpose, you don't need to fight your own impulses. You just live in flow with who you're becoming. Environment builds or breaks discipline. Your surroundings either reinforce your focus or feed your weakness. Change your environment to support the person you're becoming. Because no matter how strong your will is, you can't outgrow a space built for your old self. Design your world to match your goals, and discipline will no longer feel forced. It will feel natural. Chapter 18. Reward yourself through respect, not comfort. Stop using comfort as a reward. It turns victory into regression. The real reward is pride, knowing you did what you said you would. Because pride and effort lasts longer than pleasure and ease. You don't need more comfort. You need more clarity about what truly satisfies you. Comfort feels good in the moment, but pride feels good forever. And every time you trade discipline for comfort, you trade lasting fulfillment for temporary relief. The strongest people understand that respect is the ultimate reward. Not rest, not praise, not pleasure. Respect. You can't build self-respect by constantly escaping discomfort. Because comfort doesn't strengthen you, it softens you. And the moment comfort becomes your prize, discipline becomes your punishment. That's why most people never grow. They associate the hard work with suffering and the comfort with success. But in truth, it's the opposite. Success is the work. Comfort is the test. Comfort asks, have you earned this or are you escaping? And if your answer is escape, the reward turns into relapse. The real reward is the quiet pride of keeping your word. It's looking in the mirror and knowing you didn't negotiate your standards. It's feeling that calm, steady peace that comes from effort, not because someone clapped for you, but because you clapped for yourself. That's what makes discipline sacred. It turns hard things into identity. And once effort becomes who you are, comfort stops feeling like a reward, it feels like resistance. Most people use comfort to celebrate, and slowly that celebration becomes sabotage. A cheat day turns into a cheat week. A break turns into a pause. A pause turns into, I'll start again later. And that's how momentum dies, not through failure but through self-congratulation without awareness. The disciplined don't reward themselves with escape. They reward themselves with evolution. They don't say, I've earned time off. They say, I've earned pride. Because pride compounds. Comfort resets. The truth is, the best reward for effort is becoming someone worthy of that effort. When you choose effort over ease, you reinforce the identity of a person who keeps their word. You strengthen your self-image. You solidify your integrity. And that kind of pride, the quiet, self-respecting kind, can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It can only be earned. That's what makes it sacred. Think about how often we chase comfort as proof of progress. We say, I worked hard, I deserve to relax. And yes, rest is necessary. But rest and comfort aren't the same thing. Rest restores energy. Comfort removes urgency. Rest builds you back up. Comfort convinces you you're done. And that's the danger. When comfort becomes the signal to slow down instead of the reward to recharge. You should celebrate wins, but celebrate with alignment. Reward yourself in ways that reinforce your future, not erase your progress. If your goal is growth, reward yourself with something that adds to your growth. Learn something new. Invest in your mind. Upgrade your routine. Because comfort is cheap, it's everywhere. But self-respect is earned, and it's priceless. The person who learns to find pride in effort will always outlast the person chasing pleasure and comfort. Discipline doesn't mean you never rest. It means you rest with purpose. When you rest, you do it to refuel, not to escape. When you pause, you do it with intention, not avoidance. When you recover, it's to rebuild, not to retreat. That's the difference between recharging and regressing. One strengthens your consistency. The other breaks it. Every reward you give yourself is either reinforcing your discipline or rewarding your weakness. Choose wisely. The truth is, comfort as a reward will always betray you. It whispers, you've done enough. When in reality, you've only just begun. It convinces you that peace means inactivity, when peace is really the calm that comes after commitment. The disciplined understand this. They know that the reward for doing hard things is becoming someone who can handle hard things. That's the kind of fulfillment that no comfort can match. The best reward for work is pride. Not the loud, performative pride that needs validation, but the quiet, private pride that comes from self-respect. That's what keeps you consistent when motivation fades. The knowledge that you're keeping promises no one sees but you. Because when you live for that kind of pride, you no longer need permission to feel worthy. You become your own source of confidence. And that's the foundation of unstoppable discipline. Every time you resist the pull of comfort, you earn a new level of respect for yourself. Every time you delay gratification, you build a layer of inner strength. And every time you reward yourself with pride instead of pleasure, you evolve into the version of you that no longer needs external validation. That's what self-mastery feels like. Not louder but calmer. Not faster but deeper. Reward yourself through respect, not comfort. Stop using ease as proof of success. It's the start of decline. The real reward is pride. The quiet knowing that you did what you said you would. Because pride and effort lasts longer than pleasure and ease. And once you learn to love that kind of reward, you'll never chase empty comfort again. Because you'll already have the one thing comfort can never give you. Self-respect. Chapter 19. Reinvent yourself every year. Evolution demands reinvention, because what once worked will one day hold you back. Routines that served you once will limit you later. The systems that built your strength can become cages if you never update them. You are a living organism, not a finished product. And every year of your life asks a new question. Are you evolving or just existing? Reinvention isn't losing yourself. It's discovering new strength in the same body. It's peeling away versions of you that no longer match your potential. Most people don't fail because they can't grow. They fail because they refuse to change how they grow. They build a system that worked once and they worship it forever. But what built you to level 5 can't carry you to level 10. What saved you in one season can suffocate you in the next. The habits, the schedule, the mindset, the people. All of it must evolve as you do. Because discipline without adaptation turns into routine. And routine without reflection turns into stagnation. You must become your own scientist. Always studying, testing, refining the system that builds your best self. Every year ask yourself, what's still serving me? What's slowing me down? What am I ready to outgrow? This is not self-doubt, it's self-renewal. Reinvention means upgrading the foundation without erasing the core. It means keeping your integrity but refining your approach. It means knowing when to evolve before life forces you to. You've probably noticed, every time you level up, life demands a new version of you. A calmer one, a smarter one, a more strategic one. The goals you once prayed for will someday become your comfort zone. And that's when reinvention must begin. Because evolution is not a single decision. It's a lifestyle of self-renewal. The disciplined know this. They don't cling to old identities, they outgrow them gracefully. They're not afraid to say, this version of me worked, but I'm ready to build better. Reinvention requires honesty. The kind that makes you uncomfortable. Because it means admitting that something that once felt right is now too small for who you're becoming. You'll have to let go of habits that once helped you cope. You'll have to leave spaces that once made you feel safe. You'll have to challenge beliefs that once gave you comfort. That's not betrayal, it's evolution. You're not rejecting your old self, you're graduating from it. Every year life upgrades its test. The same questions, just harder versions. And the person you are right now, the one you've built through all the chapters of discipline, pain, consistency, and growth, is the foundation. But don't get attached to the foundation. Use it as leverage. Because the moment you start believing, this is who I am, you close the door to who you could become. You are meant to keep surprising yourself. You are meant to evolve past your last definition. Reinvention isn't about abandoning who you were. It's about integrating who you've been with who you're becoming. You take the lessons, not the limits. You keep the strength, not the struggle. You carry the wisdom, not the wounds. That's what it means to grow. To constantly edit the story without erasing the character. Each year should feel like a new volume in the same series. Different tones, same purpose. If you want to keep growing, make reinvention a ritual. Every year, evaluate your systems like an engineer. Audit your habits. Are they still aligned with your goals? Or have they become comfortable patterns that stop you from expanding? Audit your relationships. Do they challenge you or contain you? Do they feed your focus or fuel your distraction? Audit your environment. Does it reflect your next level or your last one? Reinvention begins the moment you stop defending what used to work. You can't evolve and stay loyal to comfort at the same time. One must die for the other to live. So, when the year ends, don't just make resolutions. Make replacements. Replace outdated habits with new ones. Replace old fears with new courage. Replace familiar comfort with fresh challenge. Don't carry last year's limits into your next chapter. They don't belong there anymore. The disciplined understand this truth. Evolution requires periodic destruction. The kind of destruction that clears space for the new. You're meant to shed old goals the way trees shed leaves. Not because they were bad, but because you've already absorbed what you needed from them. Growth doesn't mean more. Sometimes it means different. Different energy. Different vision. Different standards. Reinvention is how you make sure discipline doesn't become autopilot. Every version of you has an expiration date. You outgrow some dreams. You outgrow some people. You even outgrow the way you used to think about success. And that's not a loss, that's renewal. You're not meant to stay one person forever. You're meant to keep evolving into deeper alignment with your purpose. So let yourself change. Let yourself rebuild. Let yourself be brand new again, without guilt, without apology. Because the only way to honor your old self is to evolve beyond their limits. Reinvent yourself every year. Evolution demands reinvention. Assess, upgrade, and adapt your systems often. Because the moment you stop refining, you start declining. And the second you stop challenging who you are, you stop discovering who you could be. Reinvention isn't losing yourself. It's discovering new strength in the same body, new wisdom in the same mind, and new purpose in the same soul. You're not changing from who you are. You're changing into who you were always meant to be. Chapter 20, Become Who You Said You'd Be. This is the moment where words end and proof begins. The moment where potential stops mattering and execution takes over. You've said it. You've dreamed it. You've planned it. Now you have to become it. Because talk doesn't build transformation, repetition does. Belief doesn't create change, behavior does. And the world doesn't respond to what you intend to do, it responds to what you consistently prove. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more time. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need follow-through. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you said you'd be. And every action you take is either building that bridge or burning it. So ask yourself, am I proving my promise today? Or just postponing it again? Because the truth is, potential without execution is self-betrayal. You already know what to do. You're just not doing it enough. Becoming who you said you'd be isn't about intensity, it's about integrity. It's about keeping your word long after the emotion that made it fades away. Your promise to yourself is sacred. It's not a suggestion. It's not a mood. It's a contract written not on paper but in behavior. Every time you break it, your confidence erodes. Every time you keep it, your character expands. That's how self-trust grows, not through words but through witness. Through showing yourself, I can count on me. You've been through enough chapters to know. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about power. It's not about restriction, it's about respect. And now the lesson becomes simple. All the knowledge, all the reflection, all the structure means nothing if it doesn't show up in your daily execution. Your dream doesn't need new inspiration. It needs consistent demonstration. This is the part where potential dies and proof begins. Every day you wake up with a choice. To repeat or to rise. To excuse or to execute. To be the person you were or the one you promised to become. Most people keep rewriting their goals instead of living them. They keep rephrasing their dreams instead of practicing them. But success doesn't come from rewriting, it comes from reliving the promise daily. Every choice is a vote. And your life right now is the sum of every vote you've cast for who you are becoming. You said you'd be disciplined, prove it. You said you'd change, prove it. You said you'd show up when it's hard, prove it. Because words are easy. Execution is expensive. And the price is consistency. That's why most people talk about transformation but never experience it. They want the outcome, not the process. They crave the result but resist the repetition. You can't become who you said you'd be by doing what you've always done. Something has to change, and it starts with action. You don't owe anyone your potential. You owe yourself your proof. Stop explaining, stop announcing, stop waiting for approval. The person you promised to become doesn't need noise, they need action. Discipline is quiet. Execution is silent. But the results, they echo. And when they come, they speak for you louder than any explanation ever could. So don't seek validation. Seek alignment. Do the work so consistently that your life becomes your loudest argument. Becoming who you said you'd be means sacrificing comfort daily. It means walking past distractions, ignoring the old habits that whisper, "You've done enough." It means looking temptation in the eye and choosing the harder path anyway. You'll want to quit. You'll want to delay. You'll want to rest in the illusion of progress. But remember, comfort rewards you now, discipline rewards you forever. The moment you stay disciplined when no one's watching, that's the moment you cross from potential to proof. Every day your future self is watching, waiting, hoping you follow through on the promise you made long ago. They don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to keep showing up. Because discipline doesn't demand flawlessness, it demands faithfulness. Faith in your process. Faith in your consistency. Faith that every repetition, no matter how small, is building the proof that your promise is real. That's how transformation works. It's quiet, repetitive faith in action. This is the moment where all the lessons converge. Every challenge, every setback, every late night and early morning. It's all been leading here, to the person who no longer just talks about change, but embodies it, to the version of you who stopped chasing motivation and started living in momentum, to the one who understands that self-respect is the highest form of reward. This is where potential becomes proof, where identity meets integrity, where discipline finally becomes destiny. Become who you said you'd be. Live every day like it's your proof of commitment. Don't chase validation, chase consistency. Don't promise change, practice it. Your words were the beginning. Your actions are the evidence. You don't need potential, you need execution. Because when you finally become who you said you'd be, you'll realize something powerful. It was never about achieving more. It was about becoming enough. You started this journey chasing growth, and you've realized the truth. Growth was never about becoming someone else. It was about becoming you, the version you once believed in. The promises you made to yourself still matter. Every time you choose discipline over delay, you honor that promise. Every time you push when no one's watching, you prove that you've changed. You've learned that motivation is temporary, but identity is forever. That words are cheap, but follow-through is priceless. That discipline is not restriction, it's freedom. You are no longer chasing transformation, you are living it. The person you said you'd be isn't a dream, it's a choice. A choice to keep showing up. A choice to stay consistent. A choice to live aligned with your highest standard. So from this moment forward, act like the person you promised yourself you'd become. Don't talk about change. Embody it. Don't wait for approval. Validate yourself through action. This is your time. This is your proof. This is your moment to become who you said you'd be. No more waiting. No more wishing. Just work. Just discipline. Just you, fulfilled, focused, and finally free.